Okay. Hey. Wanda is feeling okay without a mask. They had good news. Let's just not sit next to her. Well, I tested this morning. She can sit next to me because I test on Q test because I'm going to fly, but she's feeling a little better. I guess that's good. Yeah, we're fine. And she's got masks and she's going to be good. And she can always sit on this side and wear an N95 and she'll be 100% safe. Okay. So.
Recording in progress.
That's interesting.
I started the recording a little earlier. Yeah, you can go over and we share on this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get and I have masks on if you get uncomfortable. I'm just trying to get my screen shared so that I can do a piece of this. Yeah, right now. Oh my goodness, so we have an attendee.
You made your day.
You are so welcome.
Thank you. I know I got maybe. So thank you.
Hey Dee. We're feeling good today without a mask.
Yeah, I'm just looking right next to you.
All right, I'm gonna start with this. Okay, so we are recording. Oh gosh, I have to enter all this.
Oh, is this
so for yeah, we may not get through. So can you tell, are you logged in? I don't see the school ones.
Oh, is there a council?
No, but I don't see the school house yet.
This is
And the stop video. Why is this? It's like they didn't log out. Somebody didn't log out before. Okay. Animating.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I have to do it join. No, if it was different. Okay, so I have to. Yeah, I know. Okay, here it goes. Here we go.
You know, what you want to do right now is what I want to do.
Here we go.
From the right.
Or no, I'm trying to get out of here tomorrow. I'm trying to get out of here at 6:30 and yeah. Join and passcode 8. I thought MJ was supposed to be trained on this now.
Yeah, so you have to mute over our own. You have to mute your own devices.
My device is muted. Okay, it's not showing. Okay. Why do we have an echo?
Oh, well, because I have to take notes. this is also, I want to share
So are we still echoing? Why are we echoing?
Somebody got the
Hello?
I don't. How do you turn it off? The sound on and also you don't want it to play back.
It cooks things more evenly when you have major impediments.
We're still
Go
echoing.
ahead.
I trust that. Okay.
It is still.
Okay. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Thank you guys for the beautiful birthday flowers. I literally, they were still blooming yesterday. They finally gave us those. Yeah, because I didn't touch them. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And we're going to take a roll call. Can I do a visual roll call? D, yeah, D, Nona, MJ, Wanda, and myself. So we have all 5 members here.
Did we start the meeting?
We did. We just, I just called it to order at 4:03. Okay, so I'm going to take oral communications for items not on the agenda. And I do want to just say that this is only titled a special meeting because we were not able to get the new time on the town council agenda to be approved. So the staff worked extra hard and created this meeting. So this is just a regular meeting. Does anyone on the committee have an open communication that's not on the agenda? Does any of our attendees have a communication? No. I'm looking on Zoom. I don't see anyone's
hands.
okay.
Reactions, raise hand.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, yes, Serena, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
So the question is whether the meetings are now going to be at 4 rather than at 7.
Yes. Last month we voted to change our meeting time to I think it's the 3rd Wednesday, and it's at 4 o'clock.
That's marvelous, since I watch them half of the year from the East Coast. Thank you.
Great, and thank you for attending. Okay, so I'm just checking again. I don't see any hands raised. Okay, so we're going to approve the minutes from March 23rd. And again, MJ, as always, thank you for creating these wonderful minutes. Do I have a motion? Second, can you vote? Okay, so then the 3 of us should vote. Unanimous.
Who gave the second?
Yes, we did. He seconded.
First and who was second?
All right, and we have the fire marshal update, and he is not, he told me he couldn't attend, and I don't see him. I don't see Don or anyone from the fire district. Okay, so we're going to move on then to item B, discussion on proposed fire ordinances 2303, 2304, and 20, and that should be 13/2023. I apologize, that was a typo. Okay, so I created a very brief little overview of what we're talking about, and all of this should be reviewed. There should be nothing new.
Apologize, I started on the wrong. So what we're going to do for this discussion is I'm going to review 3 new draft ordinances. 2303, which is I'm calling the Defensible Space Ordinance, and that includes Zone 0. 2304, which discusses the new fire breaks, and 13-2023, which is basically an update of the 2022 fire code, and that was attached to the agenda packet. I'm also going to very briefly, we're talking, this is 6 minutes total, review the new ordinance that was passed in November 2201, which is the Citations and Enforcement Ordinance. This is all review. And then at the end of my presentation, I'm going to ask the question of this committee, do we currently have any questions or concerns about these draft ordinances? And if so, or if not, are there any action items going forward? Okay. So first of all, 2201 is called the Administrative Citation Process. It was approved by the Fire District Board on November 29th, 2022. I have not been able to get the text of this actual ordinance, so I'm basing this slide on the meeting minutes that are online for the Board of Directors meeting from November 29th. And I'm also basing it on the presentation that Don gave the EPC as well as our committee. We know this ordinance included pre-citation notice or warnings, fines, late payment charges, and interest. We know that after the first warning in 30 days, there's a $100 fine. 45 days after that warning, there's a $350 fine. And 60 days after that, a warning, there's a $500 fine. We also know that it included some sort of judicial review process that we were told involves the Fire District Board. So if you didn't agree with the citation, you could go before the board. The text could possibly include up to a $500 a day fine. It could include text about the abatement process that the fire district will use to mitigate the fire danger and then bill the resident. And it could include information about the county collecting those abatement fees for the fire district as a taxable event. These are all things that Don mentioned. So that was passed in November. We have 2 new draft ordinances, 2303 and 2304. They were presented to us in March, on March 23rd at our meeting. The recording of that meeting was lost. They are still being revised. They were originally presented as one draft ordinance called 2203 in November of 2022. There were some concerns, and then Don split them into that one ordinance into 2 and presented the revised ordinances to us in March. 2303, Defensible Space and Fuel Mitigation Ordinance. It creates that Zone 0 for new and existing homes. It includes no flammable materials in that zone, such as wood fencing. It includes some text about gutters need to be free of debris. It also, of course, discusses new vegetation mitigation that has to occur in, I think, all 3 zones. It includes new requirements for roadside vegetation mitigation, including removing junipers and bamboo from up to 10 feet away from the edge of roadways and driveways. And then it includes text that at close of escrow on the sale of any parcel, the seller must have complied with 2303 before escrow can be closed. 2304, I'm calling the fuel break ordinance. That is basically saying that if you have more than 1 acre, you have to create a fuel break of 50 feet around the perimeter of the parcel. And if you have more than 10 acres, you have to create a fuel break of 100 feet around the perimeter of the parcel. Both of these ordinances Don has said the first year would simply be a rollout in education. It was indicated to us that there wouldn't be any citations in the first year. A letter would go out to property owners, and the goal would be that within a year, in June 2024, properties would need to comply. Ordinance 13/2023 was supposed to have a first reading at the board meeting on April 25th. It was delayed because Mayor Alf's had concerns because of our staffing, is that the staff had not been able to review it properly, and they agreed to delay the first reading. It's an amendment to the 2022 fire code. And this is really Dee's area, but I read it, and this is my code, but some things that popped out to me. There's possible requirements to remove certain vegetation in accordance to 2303 if you're doing remodeling in some cases. There's new access road requirements. There's new sprinkler system requirements, including any buildings that house lithium-ion batteries. And then it's changing it that if you remodel more than 50% of a building or floor space, square footage, you have to have the whole building conform to the 2023 fire code. So the current status of these three draft ordinances. So Fire Marshal Bullard has committed that he will come to this committee and present the revised new ordinance, the 2303 and 2304. I don't know what the timing will be of that. In other words, it could be a day before the board votes. It could be the day after the board votes. If he is committed, he will present it to us. I'm so sorry, the fire district. I have asked, I have expressed some concerns about these ordinances and asked that residents be given a chance to actually ask questions about the text to Dawn before they comment, because I have some concerns that if you just read these ordinances and you didn't have a very good background, you wouldn't even know what to express concern about. And I have not heard.
Hi, it's Karen.
Calling from Dr. Keen's office?
Yes.
Can everybody, can you mute? Karen, can you mute your speaker?
Yes.
Got it.
Karen, can
All
you
right,
mute your
then we will
speaker?
have to do it after that.
Karen?
So let's look
can
at
you
his
mute?
calendar.
Yes, Karen, can you mute
Oh,
your
they're gonna do it
speaker?
on a Saturday, huh? That's interesting.
Yeah, they've just started doing that.
Oh, I'm glad they did, because they're getting too big.
I say you need to
Yeah.
mute.
We are too, though. Now I don't have anything for Dr. Keen until the week
Karen,
of the 5th
we
of
can
June.
hear you.
My goodness. Well, it
Please
has to be
mute,
that
please.
way. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Karen,
So on Monday, June 5, I have 10 a.m. or 3 p.m.
Karen, can you please mute your
Okay.
microphone?
It'd have to be 10.
Okay,
Karen,
I said, please mute.
10 a.m. on June
does anyone
5.
have Karen's
6,
phone number
5
perhaps?
at
Yes, I'll call her.
a.m. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I didn't realize that.
Karen, can you mute your speaker, because we can't go on with the meeting if you're talking on the phone and your speaker is on, your microphone is on. Can you?
Sorry.
Thank you. So I've asked for that. I've not been, he's not responded. And I just want to point out that we have the draft of ordinance 2303 and 2304 as presented in March 24th, because he presented to us, but the public does not have copies of those drafts, and we've been asked not to share it. So my question to this committee, and this is a completely open discussion, everything, I really want to hear what you have to say about this. Do we currently have questions and concerns about these three draft ordinances? And if so, Is there a process we want to use to express any of our current questions or concerns? And what is our action items going forward? For example, do we want to form a subcommittee to increase response time? So I'm open. I'm going to just open it up for discussion. Who would like to start? No. I don't.
Hey, Wanda, you should put the mic right next to your mouth.
I got it out of the way.
Real close to your mouth, or
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Okay. I read through these. I admit there are parts that I don't understand, and I'm worried that my interpretation of what they say might not be correct. And I really feel like these need to get out to the public and make sure people understand them, people like me. And that there be a process where that public input is taken into account before the fire board ever votes on them, because they look pretty draconian.
Okay.
Well, I agree that I'd like to see what their current draft is. I mean, that's the whole idea of drafts, right? It's like, what have they been changing in this last month? And why aren't they being published? Why aren't they being shared? Just from a transparency point of view, I think that the public needs to see them as we are discussing them, and also update when he wants to, present. And I agree. I think that everybody needs a chance to take a look and to discuss. I'd be happy to be on a subcommittee so that we could have some open discussion.
So the ordinance that I've looked at most closely is 2303. And as I think I mentioned to Jennifer, at the last Conservation Committee meeting, which was on April 25th, Kim Giuliacci came from Wildfire Fire as Don Bullard's representative and went over some elements of the draft ordinance and said that we came to an agreement that a subcommittee of conservation would go over the vegetation management sections of it to see if there were any additional changes we wanted to recommend. We recommended some, a couple months ago on the previous draft. After that meeting, one of the council members sent us what I believe is the current draft of 2303. I'm not positive because it's not actually dated, but we were in our subcommittee, which I was the lead on, but also included Marianne Thunder, Megan Richards, and then Sarah Gilbert, who is a community member who was at that last meeting and asked to participate, also participated. We had a subcommittee meeting and we went through word by word 2303, what we think is the draft, as Kim had said we should do. And so I have all of those changes in a sort of a track changes form now. And my understanding is that we are going to give that to the Fire Protection Board to see whether or not they want to incorporate that. And the timing is unclear to me as well, because it hasn't been publicly noticed. And I think there has to be a public comment period. And so I don't know if they were asking for input from us that would be factored into a draft that would then become public, or whether it would be our feedback would be part of the public comment period. What we found going through it is that there were a number of words that were used, such as brush or weeds or things like that, that we felt could be better defined. We also felt that there were some words left out and some concepts left out that we would like to see added, things like the value of mulch and what kind of mulch would be appropriate and how it would be valuable. that there was some elements of the preamble that had to do with the nature of vegetation in this area that could have included aspects of the special biodiversity of the region and why Portola Valley is such a unique place. So all of that is represented in the comments that we have put together for the board. And I'm happy to share, aspects of that, but there are really a lot of them. And some of them are minor, some of them are sort of new ideas. In general, our goal was to fine tune this in ways that we thought would better represent the Conservation Committee's concerns, but also to sort of give it a little bit more balance about how to protect biodiversity in ways that make a habitat more fire safe. Yeah, right. To make it all work together better. I'm just gonna make a comment about the timing, because I did a deep dive and tried to find what information was available. And I went back and looked at the minutes when other ordinances were passed. And, the fire district obviously is a Brown Act committee. They have to give 72 hours notice. When you look at the county, I guess it's the charter of the district, they are responsible for passing fire ordinances. And from what I can tell, they're not obligated to necessarily take any kind of input, but obviously they do. They obviously work with the town. And we know from what the mayor discussed with the board last month that notices were sent to the town about the building code ordinance. It's just, there wasn't anyone there to get the email because we have we're in a staffing shortage right now. So that was the concern. It is very possible that they could have a first reading. So anytime an ordinance is changed, they have to have another first reading. That is very clear to me. So they could have a first reading and vote on it the same day. And what they normally do is, this is all my understanding, and I did ask Don for clarification, and I didn't get any. He might be out of town this week, I don't know. But it is, they post it on the almanac that something like this is going to happen. And then usually they post the ordinance in the news section of the board. So there is the possibility that any one of these ordinances could go up at the next meeting in 2 weeks and be voted on. MJ, do you have any comments?
I actually went down a similar sort of rabbit hole in that I was trying to understand what is a special district and how are they governed and how many readings are they supposed to have, because the town usually has 3, I guess, right, before they do an ordinance. I actually couldn't find anything on governance, so I'm surprised you found something.
I looked at the meeting minutes and agenda items, all of them that they have posted. So I'm looking at past items, and on one item, they had actually voted and there was a correction the following month. And they said, it turns out that we had made a revision and therefore we needed the first reading again. So I just am putting this together based on the minutes. But they are in charge of passing fire ordinances. So if they, and I know that the town has been notified about these ordinances, so they could very well just post it on the agenda and vote on it next month.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, the thing I didn't have time to do was to read their bylaws, and I thought their bylaws would explain what their process is, but I didn't get around to doing that yet.
I didn't find them.
You couldn't find the bylaws?
I couldn't find that.
So, yeah,
Well,
and then,
let's just talk about the ordinances.
well, I wanted to bring up something else. Well, I'll bring it later. So, yeah, so I only took the time to review the 13-2023 ordinance, and I came up with a really long list of questions. I think my questions go about 5 pages or something. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we really need a way to be able to ask these questions of Don, assuming that Don is the guy writing these. That's not even clear to me, because when I read the 13-2023, it's got this new, and I compared it with the ordinance 12 that it's replacing, right? Did you guys? I mean, it went from what, 11 pages to 46, and it's got this whole section 1 that sort of sounds like something that would be in a safety element or a housing element, and it was, a lot of it was, I thought, was unsubstantiated science, like maybe citizen science or something. And, there's no references, there's nothing for some of these statements. And I just guess I would really like to get my questions answered before, before this is passed. It just doesn't sit right.
Okay. So, and I have made that request twice, that we have some kind of, I've offered to host that, to have a special meeting at their convenience, to have residents asking questions, not just making comments, but having a question and answer. I have lots of individual questions, but I have 2 big concerns. I talked to a lot of residents, and actually I got a chance to talk to a lot of people at the fair. And we have a lot of seniors on fixed income in Portola Valley. And we also have families who are struggling in today's economy, for a variety of reasons. And my concern is that 2303 and 2304 are going to really increase people's burden on meeting these ordinances. And I'm concerned that this 1-year implementation period might be problematic. I could easily see someone finding that they have tens of thousands of dollars worth of mitigation that they have to do. And, for the big open space areas, Stanford and Mid-Penn, they're going to negotiate with them, and they're going to say, well, we have this plan, and this was our plan, and if we modify it, and we spend 7 years, is this okay? And he's going to say, fine. But the residents, they get 1 year, and then all of a sudden they're cited. And I don't know if I have concerns about the actual implementation, the text. I think that this is a good direction, and we need to do these things because we do need to be safer from wildfire. But I feel like there has to be a mechanism if we're going to put something like this in place, where if I can't afford to do $40,000 worth of work this year, that I should be able to negotiate and say, okay, this is my 5-year plan. I can do $7,000 worth of work over the next 5 years or 7 years. Because you start this citation process and the county starts to tax you and you don't pay those taxes, you could lose your home. I mean, it's alarming to me. And second of all, this text about, and this is probably a very simple fix, but it's an example of why we need this question and answer period. This text that says at close of escrow on any sale, you have to meet these requirements. I actually very much support that idea. However, the way it's worded, it's not clear if the seller actually has to perform that work. I mean, I looked up close of escrow, and there's a term called holdback money, where if you're selling a property, you can say, all right, we're going to take so much of the proceeds, we're going to put it in a holdback fund. Let's say it's $100,000. And then the buyer performs all this mitigation work after the sale, and then I get the residue. That's fine because the sale has gone through. But if the seller, the way it's worded right now, it's not clear to me that the seller doesn't actually have to perform that work before transfer of title. And if you get some senior who's selling a home after their spouse died and they need to sell it quickly, they're not going to have $30,000, $40,000 to bring that property up to code. And I just feel like we need to make sure that that wording is such that people can do that. So those are my two overarching concerns. And then I have detailed questions.
Yeah, I think under the current code, the work has to be done after close of escrow, or it can be done after close of escrow, and just either the buyer or the seller has to provide evidence to the fire district that it was done.
But this is different. This
so this is different. And then it's not clear to me if the sale fell through, then I guess the seller would have had to pay for everything.
Well, it's a very easy fix to say, you put that money in some kind of a holdback escrow account. After the close of the transfer of title, you have 90 days to do the work. And then when the work is done, you can release the funds. I mean, I don't think it's a big problem to word it in such a way that it's going to be from the proceeds of the house. It's just that you have to make sure that's what it says. And
right. I think this is a perfect example of like, let's get our realtors involved. Right? What are they thinking about this, and how would they help craft this? Because this is their specialty, right?
So there's also the question of timing. So when a house closes, if the work has to take place within a certain period of time, it also depends on whether that's a good time to be doing fuel reduction.
That's right.
Oh, that's another.
Absolutely.
One would have to sort of understand something about it. Yeah.
My concern has to do, I mean, I agree with you. I'm concerned about people who are trying to sell a house and just panic hits them. My concern has to do with finding out what has to be done and getting it done in a year, which I think is ridiculous. And not having somebody suddenly drop in a surprise visit and say, oh, you're out of compliance. Here's your citation. And if you don't get it done in X days, it's $500. I really would like to understand the procedure they're going to go through, especially in view of that thing the fire district sent out last month, talking about coming around to do inspections. And I'm thinking, no, you're not coming on my property when I don't know about you coming on here. And we have a lot of people who've lived out here a long time who would be pretty terrified with something like that happening. So I'd like to know more about that process.
Right. I mean, I think Don said he has to get a permission to access. But I agree with you. I would like to see how these assessments, I think it's a great idea to, like, over a period of time to make sure that all properties do get an assessment,
absolutely.
Right? But I think that my other point was, you were speaking about Don and open spaces and negotiating. I think we should also start talking of role, right? Fire marshal, because we're not sure how long Don, who knows this very well, but when he leaves, all of that knowledge leaves. So I think we should remember to speak in terms of roles instead of in terms of people. And then the very section 2A of 13, it says, no section of this shall impose a mandatory duty of enforcement on the fire district. So they have, it's up to the discretion of the fire district to do this, right? So there's lots of questions about process, right? And these are good examples of things that we need to dive a little deeper in.
So is there anything we can do to get access, I mean, to make this start happening.
No, keep on. We're not going to.
I'd like to just throw in a couple more comments. One is that at the last Conservation Committee meeting, there was feedback that inspections had started by that time, and there was, they weren't very consistent. So some inspectors were really strict and some were less strict. And so, you know, is there sort of a built-in appeal process if you feel like you just got really, you know, sort of overwhelmed? But the other question that came up is there a way to involve committees where appropriate in finding ways to harmonize the fuel reduction goals of the ordinance with habitat management that is fire safe? And one idea that we came up with was to think about, for example, the requirement that you mow everything by June 1st to 3 inches, and then it's going to grow back, and then you're going to have to mow it again. That might be fine for annual grasses, but it's not fine for perennial grasses. And if you do that with perennial grasses, you lose them, and then you promote invasives, and then it's fire safe and all that sort of stuff. So is there a way to work with committees where you have kind of like our backyard habitat award, where you say, this is a habitat that has native perennial grasses, and so it is more fire safe if you only mow once than if you mow it twice, because then you'll get invasive. So something like that where you really involve the broader community, whether it's real.
That's a great example.
It almost sounds like you're suggesting that we need to have experts doing the inspection.
Well, I think they probably are, you know, experts in their perspective, right, in their concerns. But if there is a way to factor in other issues. So another example was in the ordinance, it's about 10-foot spacing between the canopies of trees when they're mature. Well, that might be fine for certain trees, but if you have redwoods or oaks that are fire safe, then you probably want a more closed canopy environment to have a shaded fuel break, right? So you don't want that much spacing necessarily. And so having an understanding of what is the safe forest structure might be really helpful. And it means that we all work together on the same goal.
I am also a little concerned with the time frame that, you know, people are just going to panic and they're going to just hire someone to mow everything down, and all of our work on, you know, conservation wise and fire safe is going to go out the window. I have asked Don for a text of the citation process ordinance, and I still haven't gotten it. So I have two thoughts, and this is just thoughts. So our mission is to advise the town council and to work with the town manager. And I know at least the mayor is very watchful of this, and that he was involved with the 2023. And I talked to our interim town manager about the other two ordinances. So I know that there is probably a lot going on within the town council and the town staff on these. So I would at least like to produce something in our capacity as an advisory committee where because maybe we have thought of something that they haven't, or we articulate it in a different way. So what I was thinking would be to produce something. I'm on a plane tomorrow morning, but I can work on the plane, and I'm back next Wednesday. So I was thinking of something that we produce, a cover letter of general big concerns. I think the economic impact is my biggest concern. And then also attach a specific list of questions about the text. And then let me send that to Councilman Taylor and to Howard, our interim town manager, and see where that will be the most useful. do they want us to send that to the town council? The town council meeting is, I think it takes place the day after the board meeting. Do they want us to send it to the fire district board? Do they want me to go to the fire district meeting and present it? Do they, you know, it may be that the mayor is planning to go and he just wants this in his hand. I do think that we should produce something, and you know, it may be that these are not on the agenda next month, in 2 weeks, in which case we have lots of time. But just in case these are on the agenda, I would like to have it ready for us to kind of make sure that our concerns are presented. So if we wanted to do that, there's 2 ways to do it. I think I would have to write the cover memo because I'm the chair, but we could have the subcommittee that produces the questions, could be MJ and you, or it could be myself and one other person to produce a list of questions. I was thinking of MJ and myself because I'm not going to have time to consolidate. I was thinking that everyone could send the list of questions to the subcommittee blind so that it's not a discussion. That's in accordance to the Brown Act. And then that list of questions would be consolidated. We'd have them. And then if the draft is modified and we get a new draft, then we just tweak our list.
You're talking about the list of questions about the ordinance.
About the ordinances or and minor concerns and minor suggestions. And then the memo would be our big. I think whenever you have a whole list of things, it's important to consolidate your top 1 or 2 concerns. So what are the thoughts about that?
And it has to be done in 2 weeks?
Well, I mean, and this would be something that I could commit to do, because the fire district board meets in 2 weeks. And if that's on the agenda, we're going to know 3 days before. So I would like to be able to have time to send it to the town council. I'm uncomfortable sending it directly to the fire district board because I don't think that's our place. Our place is to advise.
Right.
And our place is to let the town council know our concerns and the town manager. And I know that they will all be very interested in what we have to say. So I'm thinking, MJ, if people sent their questions to you, could you consolidate those questions? If I wrote the memo?
And the memo is going to go to the town council or
well,
to the fire board?
Well, for one thing, if we do a subcommittee, now it has to be 2 people.
It can't be, it can only be 2 people. So
be volunteer.
Yes. but you're the secretary, so she'd have to consolidate all the questions. Or you 2 could be the subcommittee to do the questions and I just don't show you my cover letter. Or because there's no way for me, it's fine if you send me the questions and I don't have any discussion about them.
But you would also, everybody would send the subcommittee their questions. Our job would be to consolidate and send them to you.
The final version, and then that would be attached to the memo. I was just hoping to have someone to
And I'm still not clear. Your memo and the list of questions goes where?
The town council.
It'll go to our town council liaison in Howard, and they're going to tell us what they want.
I just want to say, I think that process is correct, right? Like we have feedback and we give it to Councilman Taylor, as well as the town manager, and allow them to take it to the fire district. Right. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a quick note. Are you guys going to take any public comments on this or not?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I am definitely going to take public comment. We're just finishing our discussion first, and then we're going to take public comment.
You know, another way to do it would be to have a special meeting of the whole committee and just go through all the things. And that way we all discuss them and you're right there and
then get it all, just have something produced, have like a product by the time we're done, right?
Yeah. So we'd have to do it next week or
the fire board meets when?
2 weeks.
What's the
The last
The
Tuesday
31st?
of each month is when they
Oh,
meet.
last Tuesday. Okay, the 30th.
You want to guys, do you want to do that?
Well, the thing is, though, if we do it, you're saying we do it before the board, the fire district board meeting, but then the next town council meeting is after that.
Yeah.
So we would be sending it.
Well, I don't know where we're going to send it. It's going to depend on, you know, maybe I'm looking at this too complicated. It may be they're not going to discuss this ordinance for another 2 months, in which case we have lots of time. I don't know the timing of when they're going to discuss this. So if it pops up on their agenda 72 hours in advance, I want a list of questions in advance.
Yeah, but you're still going to send them to the liaison and Howard, not to the board. So
no, I'm just going to review it with them to get their advice on where they would like us to send it.
I have a proposal. Why don't why don't we think about sending a memo to Councilman Taylor and to the town manager that says we have many concerns about the process and we would like to have input, and like just as a general, we're requesting more time. And I think maybe that's the way to state it. We're requesting more time from the Woodside Fire District for the readings of these, for the public transparency. And so we're advising town council to ask Woodside Fire District that we need more time to raise our concerns. Right? Like, I think that would be, it's just an idea.
Or maybe we don't need to ask for more time because we don't know how much time we have.
yeah.
Right? We could just say there needs to be a period of public comment.
Yeah. So you could actually write that memo right now.
Right now.
And we don't need a subcommittee.
We need to be informed of timeline. We need to be informed of the readings. We need to see the final text. I mean, we have concerns. I think that's really the takeaway.
So can I take public comment now and then we can come back to this discussion?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. David, go ahead.
All right, thanks. I think you're coming to a pretty good place, which is the big issue for me is this process is totally mucked up. I mean, having a public hearing on a private document that we can't read, I mean, that can't be legal and can't be according to the Brown Act. I mean, not your fault, but so I think pushing back and saying, hey, this is a major thing that's going to affect our whole town, every bit as important as a housing element. It needs to be publicly vented, commented on. I think we've been hijacked a bit by the fire marshal's office, which frankly, I think is kind of getting their stuff ghostwritten by a disgruntled, failed fire district member, but that's just my fire district candidate. That's my personal opinion. Things like a 5-foot rule for building fences, sprinklers for every place anybody has a Tesla. I'm not even sure water sprinklers are going to put out a Tesla fire. Stuff like that. I mean, we need to open that up and pay attention and not just get a couple people dictating it to all of us. So bless all of you for taking a stand and pushing back. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes.
Oh, could you identify yourself?
Do you want me to, and I can repeat the question, or do you want, you go ahead and say it and I'll.
Could you stand at the?
Could you use the speaker?
The microphone.
Microphone?
Otherwise.
Well, it's just that the Zoom, whoever's out there can't hear you. So. Thank you. I appreciate it.
My name is Edith Collins, 360 Cervantes Road. I think this is great. I think this is maybe the beginning of getting the whole town administration meeting kind of thing on track, because it sounds like it's the Wild West for you guys. But what I'm not hearing and listening for is when I look at the list and hear the list, I'm not hearing anything about shake roofs, And if you walk around town, and shake roofs to me are going to be the bane of a fire. If you walk around town and look at the roofs, there are a ton of shake roofs. And I'm not hearing anything about, you got to change your roof. On the other side, I know people who can't find a roofer. Roofers are so busy. It's a problem. However, I still think that the whole thing about changing your roof from a shake roof to a whatever is not going to burn that fast is really important. And I've forgotten the other thing I was going to say. I think the other thing was just, I think that this is great what you guys are doing, just process how meetings process and blend in with each other. Because from what I've seen, I don't like coming to town meetings. But also it has not been so friendly. But watching this process gives me more faith that that's what's going to happen. Because I agree with everything you're saying about asking people to do this within 1 year. Because you start asking people and like you hear $40,000 worth of trees because of the storm and the water, and so it's an ongoing thing anyway. But then to have to do that, oh, I know what my other thing is going to be. So I live within a radius where there's a house that has got sold. No, it was sold. Then it was sold again, and they remodeled. And several of us as neighbors told the town about multiple times that they were cheating. I mean, I saw cement trucks going up on Sunday mornings, no permits. They built onto their way over, nothing. So then this house got sold again. And now the people who are living there didn't do any of this, but they're the recipients of all of this. So I've heard total gossip that there's a suit going on because it's the only way they can resolve anything. So how does one owner, how does the town, oh, that was my other point. How does the town manage this? Because they knew this was going on. They did nothing. And now they've got this nightmare on their hands. Plus owners who it's no fault of theirs have to do something about it. So my impression from a distance is that the town doesn't have the staff to watch out for these things. Even when they're notified, they don't have the staff to go out and say, this, and this, and we're going to get on you and we're going to follow through, because they just don't have the time. And that costs money, and I totally understand. But I just think a lot of things, you can have the best process in order, but if you don't have the staff to back it up, it doesn't mean anything. Thank you.
And thank you so much for that comment. Isn't it now, if you install a roof in Patola Valley, it can no longer be?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have a Class A fire roof. That's building code. And but I do take your point that there are a lot of existing roofs, and so there's nothing right now. The only thing that would enforce someone changing their roof is if they were to do a remodel, and a lot of these things are listed in 13. If you're doing, it just depends on the size of the job that you're remodeling. So if you're going for a different building permit, then that's the chance that they have to require you to go Class A. But there's nothing that I know of that says that will enforce changing out a roof at this time. Yeah.
Just so you know,
Karen, if your hand is up, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment to Edith. I believe that the public comment on the roofs. I don't remember it was in 2020 or 2021. I counted every shake roof in town, and Dawn sent out an elaborate letter to those owners. So each of those people know about the threat of the shake roof. So it'd be very unlikely that we could pass an ordinance forcing them to change it, but they are completely aware that they have a problematic roof.
Thank you.
yeah, and Karen, I think at the time you told me that you had counted like over 200, right?
No, it was like 119, and I know a number of them actually have come down. So I would, simplistically say 100.
So, okay, so I'm going to take these suggestion. So if I were to send a memo to someone, whether it ends up being the board or the town council or whatever, our greatest concerns we want to express is the economic challenge of complying with 2303 and 2304. We're concerned about that escrow clause. We're concerned that homeowners will not really be able to comment on the draft ordinance unless there's a question and answer period. And we would like a time where we can offer to hold a meeting and residents can actually ask Dawn or someone from the district questions about these draft ordinances, and obviously they need to receive a copy before the meeting. Would there be any other big point in that memo that you would want?
Conservation. I think conservation should be the, like, clarifying and the work that the conservation subcommittee is doing, right? Like this is a huge issue, right? I would like that to be maybe one or two, number one or number two, just clarifying. There's some really broad general language in these ordinances, and you know, Nona, you could probably say it more clearly than I am.
Yeah, I don't know that we have the draft ordinance even, so I'm hesitant to say you need to change this and this, or this is what we would like to see, because I actually don't know exactly what.
But if you wanted to clarify, you could say transparency, economic impact, and conservation concerns. Yeah. You know, like be very impactful and clear about why we want this process to be different.
And a long enough process that everyone who really wants to have input can have it.
Okay, so for conservation, I mean, I guess I could maybe send Nona the text. I could send you the text about the conservation. Okay. And that's, I just send you the text that you're just consulting on that one piece of it. Transparency, we're concerned that we have not been given a schedule for these ordinances. We're not clear on the timeline to comment. I mean, technically, they don't need to give, I mean, they are in charge of creating fire ordinances to the district. And
yeah, I don't think we're trying to argue what's the law. It's more like what's the right thing to do to make sure that the public will, you know, accept these changes. And if you just, you know, we all know how it is. If you just go through there and just pretend like no one else is listening, then no one is going to listen.
So conservation, probably the economic impact would be probably number one. The conservation impact would be number two. Transparency would be number three.
You could say process instead of transparency.
Process.
It's the process that has me concerned.
And I guess I was just suggesting we don't have to get into specifics. I think that this memo is just to say we want to push back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What I had written down, but I didn't write down who said it. Maybe it was you. That we are requesting more time. The letter should say we are requesting more time from the board, fire district board, more time to raise our concerns, be informed of the timeline, and see the final text. Mm-hmm. And then Dave had a great statement about, which you probably can't put in the letter, but I thought it was great, having a public hearing on a private document that we can't read, just, you know, it's not tenable. Yeah, so you can't put that in the letter.
Oh, I know. You know me. You know me. It's gonna.
But the sentiment is correct.
Yes,
that's the thing.
So I want one person to work with me on this letter. Yeah. Wanda and I did everything. You all okay? Can you send me your notes? Possibly, maybe even like tonight, raw notes.
Yeah, sure. I'll send you everything
so that I can work on this on
down.
the plane. Okay.
We wouldn't want you to relax and just have a good time.
So basically,
Are we taking a motion on this?
well,
or
no,
something?
well, we will, but I want to tell you the plan.
Oh,
So if it's on the agenda, if one of these ordinances is on the agenda for the next district meeting, I will just go to the meeting and I will voice all these concerns. Fire district boards. I'm also going to write a memo and pass it by Craig and Howard, our interim town manager and our town council liaison. And I'm going to see if they want us to send it to the town council. The mayor may want it, or maybe they say send it to the board. But there's going to be at least a memo expressing this concern. And I'll probably have that out next Wednesday because I really need time. I can't do this while I'm in Disney World. I can only do so much. But I will probably be sending Wanda like a first draft tomorrow. And then you'll have a couple of days to comment. And then I do see Serena's hand, and I'll go ahead and let you comment, even though public comment has ended. Go ahead, Serena.
So I just wanted to make sure, being fairly new to Portola Valley, that I understand. The Woodside Fire Protection District has total authority to just say, no, the draft that Don read to us a couple of months ago, we feel that we need to do because otherwise we can't protect the town, and it is now law. Is that correct?
I don't know the exact process because we don't have access to their bylaws. And I have asked for clarification on the timeline and the process, and I've not gotten it. But if you look at the county website, the fire district is in charge of creating fire code and ordinances. It seems very apparent to read when attending those meetings, those district meetings, and reading the minutes, that they do tell the town council, they do communicate with town staff. I know for a fact that Don is communicating with town staff and with the town council. Mayor Else was at the last meeting and really representing the town as well as anyone could possibly do so. I'm very grateful to him for spending that amount of time and energy on it. So I don't think anyone on this committee can be absolutely clear what the process is, but it does seem from the minutes that in the past, for most ordinances, they just will post something in the paper edition of the almanac, and then the ordinance is posted on their website and on their agenda, which is available 72 hours in advance, which is what Brown Act requires. And that if, then they hear public comment, you can go to that open meeting, and after public comment, they could vote on it. That's my understanding.
Thank you.
And if I get other information, I'll certainly review that next month.
yeah, even the citation ordinance that they passed in November, they waived the second reading. So they really passed it on one reading.
And I will say this, we are really missing Jeremy
Yeah.
at this point, because I don't know. I do know for a fact that, he really was on top of this, and he worked very closely with the other towns. He worked very closely with Woodside. And when the first draft of this ordinance was passed, they wrote a joint letter with Midpen and Stanford, and we don't have, Howard's doing a fantastic job, but we lost a lot of institutional knowledge when Jeremy left. Okay, David, go ahead.
Sure. When I read the town laws, my reading is that the ordinance does not take effect until the town council discusses it, and it can be accepted, modified, or denied. So I think, and God bless if we hopefully we have a new good attorney too. If you look at the Portola Valley Municipal Code, the town council does have the ability to reject a fire ordinance. So that's my layman's take. Thanks.
Is that what happened when last time when they took the put the Portola Valley ordinance in that said fences not within 10 foot? They didn't accept the stricter version, but felt that they accomplished this by doing the fence within 10 foot town ordinance.
I don't think we want, I'm sure. And that's really interesting. I will research that data.
Yeah, it's section 1516 in the town code. Okay. And it seems pretty clear, but I have no idea. I mean, there could be lots of other sections that are different. So
I'd just like to chime in that I think we're sort of getting a mixed message on a number of things. And, you know, at least at the Conservation Committee meeting in April, Kim Giuliacci, as Don's representative, he spent an hour with us going over some of the ordinance wording, saying that they really did want feedback and input. So I don't know why it seems kind of uncoordinated in terms of achieving that, but I'd like to hope that, but they really are interested in.
And I do think so. And that's why I was hoping to get a list of our concerns so that we could send it to them. Because I do think that, you know, obviously, they would like the resident to take the residents with them as they approve this. But these are difficult issues, and they're going to be expensive issues. Okay, so do you think we need to make a motion and actually vote on this, just to be sure? Okay, so the motion, let's see, it would probably be that I would write a memo and to the town council member Taylor and to Howard, voicing our concerns, and asking for time and highlighting our concerns. So would anyone like to second? Can I vote? That was D. Oh, thank you. Okay. So, okay. So I don't know if we're going to make it to everything today, and if we don't, that's okay. I know some of us can stay a little longer. I'd like to get some of these things out of our way. So the next, we're going to discuss the draft outline on the Committee Wildfire Mitigation Program reports. I don't think I have to give a history of this report. I think we all know that this is a holdover when we tabled the discussion. The point of this report, if we vote to actually produce it, and it would be Wanda and I producing the report, would be to educate residents in the town council on what options we have as far as fire mitigation programs. And the focus would be to understand what it is we want to do. And I will tell you that right now, one of my biggest concerns is, you know, we did propose to the town council to put aside some money for grant writers. And one of my biggest concerns is that I don't know what we would tell the grant writers we wanted grants for. And you can't just have 3 or 4 different kind of programs going. You kind of have to pick what you want to do because they require a lot of staff time. And, you know, you get grant money, you still have to kick in money yourself. So we really want to be focused about what kind of grants we're looking for, what kind of program we want. And I don't think that the town has really had that discussion. So this report would look at what problem we might want to solve. Do we want, you know, we have the right of way work, we have, you know, if we want to get grants what type of grants and who is going to receive the benefit from those grants. Is it residents? Is it high fire zone area? Is it low income? And what is our 10-year goal? I mean, really discussing the different options that the town has going forward, how much money we're willing to spend. And if we're interested in getting grants, what tools do we need to put in place so that we're more likely to get grants? And so I'm kind of envisioning at the end, when there's a section I left blank for recommendations by this committee, I'm almost envisioning it's a menu of recommendations. Well, if you want to spend this much money, we could do this. Or if you, the town council, view this is the biggest problem, this would be the direction you might go. I think things have changed so much from when we presented the 10-year mitigation proposal of fighting the Ember Storm together. We are missing a lot of staff, so we really can't implement a program probably for at least a year. We are now going to have much more robust defensible space ordinances, it seems. Therefore, perhaps the problems we thought that program would solve will no longer need to be solved. There's more grant money out there, and there's some different opportunities that make other programs perhaps more interesting. And that's something we have to kind of revisit because it's been a year. So I'd like to kind of open up the discussion if you want us to actually write this report. And one more thing, if we do, it'll probably come back to you maybe every month as a section, like one little section at a time. Like maybe we would do, well, I mean, obviously we can't define the problems of Patrol Valley till the safety element gets passed. So maybe we tackle what we can, and then at the end it would probably be grant money and funding. So, discussion.
I think the draft as written, the draft outline is fabulous. I almost think that you could take this to the council and say, which part of this would be most useful to you? Because it's easy to sort of see the big picture with this outline. And then, you know, the landscape has changed. Maybe the thing that we really need is the money to help people do what they need to do now that we are going to have an ordinance that is incredibly specific. Mm-hmm. But I just think this is so helpful, even this.
I second that too. Really well done. You guys have put so much work into this.
It's going to be very difficult to find grant money for private property. And it's oh my gosh, I could talk for 20 minutes right now about grant money and what we need to get that grant money. So, and if we wanted to do private property, vegetation, mitigation, what do we need? It depends on the grant. We don't, some grants, so the grant that we, and by the way, we did not get the grant money for the California Wildfire Defense Grant. But when you look at the cities that did, it's pretty obvious why we didn't get it. A lot of Indian reservations, great stories, cities that have done fire mitigation and they were building on other programs. Our problem getting that grant money is we don't have any defined low-income residents. They may be out there, but we don't have any way of showing. The census did not indicate that we had a low-income population. We don't have a defined very high fire zone. we're a local area of responsibility, so we're not, you know, state. We don't have a California Wildfire Preparedness Plan, which defines, we're using the counties as opposed to our district has a defined one, and some grants want you to use that CWPP because that's your story. It says as a community, we have identified what we want to do, and we don't have that. We don't have, and Woodside, may I say, we've had a very robust vegetation management program for many years. They have not gotten one done with grant, and they are very active in trying to get grants.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that that is what the town needs. I'm saying that this is a great document to take to the town council and have them say what we would could really use next from you is the following. Partly because we've already said that our concern, one of our big concerns is economic about the new ordinance.
So take this as a draft and say, do you want us to write it, or how do you want us to change it? Or
didn't you present this to them already?
No, we made a budget recommendation, and we included the proposals that from our 10-year
the 10-year
fire mitigation program. They asked us, to answer the question, is there a fire mitigation program that makes sense for us? You can't really answer that question unless you go through and really write the report. But if that's what the committee wants to do, we can present it to them. I'm just not sure if it would be all the information. If we write the report, then we have a complete set of information for the next town manager, for the, you know, council members. We have all that information.
You know, I guess my feeling is that because you did the 10-year mitigation plan for really a different town council, and we don't even know if you wrote this report on, you know, what we could do in the town. We don't know that the town council would even want to hear it. It's true. So I think maybe you ought to, like the simple memo thing, we need another one memo that says, what do you guys want from this committee?
Okay.
You know, and we could say, if these new ordinances go through, it's going to have this economic impact. Do you want us to work on grant programs, which would probably have to be self-funded by the town?
So just submit this and kind of give a history of it and say, okay, the last town council asked us to do this. This would be the outline of the report that we would produce to answer that question. Do you still want it, or do you want to change it to? I'm okay, but that means I have to write the report.
The report is so much work that if there isn't sort of a built-in audience that has asked for that report, I just hate to see all that effort go into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll put together that memo. I'll present it to you next month, and then you can vote. If that's, maybe they said that they don't want it, and I'm done. Okay.
Dream on.
All right. Okay. So public comment on this issue of the fire mitigation program report. Any public comment? Nothing. Okay. So, oh my gosh. Okay. So I have I have our agenda now. We're going to review the Wildfire Preparedness Fair. That's next. Okay. So, wow, it was a huge success. I'm going to start this by saying thank you to everyone. The lecture series was amazing. I think that we're up to what, 177 views on YouTube. And still going strong.
We're at 183 right now.
Oh, are we at 183?
I've been so excited about this. I've been tracking it every day.
I think this is the way to get the word out. It was amazing. And MJ not only had to put that lecture series together, but she had to figure out the technology. It was no small feat. Dee, your exhibit was amazing. I watched people and they would come in and they'd say, I have questions about do-it-yourself home hardening. I'd send them over and they would just stand there and you could just see them so engaged. And I have great pictures of Dee and Richard just talking to people. And do you want to, and I want you to tell the story of, well, I'm going to tell, no, you're going to tell the story of the house. The house was beautiful. I don't know if I showed everyone the pictures of this beautiful demo house that we made. And there was a wheel issue.
It was a learning experience. Actually, I wanted to step back and say, I don't know that you are receiving the kudos, but seriously, Jennifer, you put in so much time and energy, and I was just in awe of how much dedication and just even writing the report of this. You, I'm speechless about how much. So thank you. This would have not happened without you. You were the drive, you were the energy, you were dedicated, and I think you inspired everyone to really come through. So hats off, really. Just please take in the praise is what I really, yeah, absolutely.
But back to her demo house.
Well, you know,
so beautiful.
It was an idea. So here's a perfect example. It was an idea that I just threw out at the beginning of the year, and you actually you got other people inspired, and you got me inspired about my own idea. I mean, that's really kind of how to say that. We did have I had an issue at the very last, and I'm really happy that I didn't try to bring this thing over. But I think that there are possibilities for using it in future exhibits. The process of doing it really got me back hands-on about working with these materials and understanding the concepts of all the different areas. So it was a valuable, you know, I was able to speak with really recent experience of working with all of these things. So I think that was part of it also. But anyway, thank you. I just really want you to hear
it came down to a safety issue. She made the calls. But what was so unique about this house is that the vendors could have brought their ember-resistant vents and fit them into the hole. And it got us talking during the event actually about how effective it would be to actually have small seminars for homeowners to come and actually learn how to install this kind of a demo. And then also something Dee suggested, which I thought was really interesting, is actually having someone from the building, the department come and be able to ask questions like, I've been struggling with my wooden deck at the ranch, and I really learned from talking to Dee and Richard that no, there is a material that I can replace and it would be fine. And I didn't really know until I asked them questions. And those are the kind of things that homeowners need. Maybe we just have one meeting where we have questions and answers from the building department about some of these codes. So, and now is that house, we talked about getting that house to the town picnic, is that still on the table?
I don't have, I haven't committed to that yet. We can certainly, let's talk offline about whether that makes sense or not.
Oh, I thought you had a different plan for that.
I mean, right now, actually what I was telling MJ is right now I have this great fireproof shed for my house. Right? So,
which is actually important.
It is important. One of our speakers, Jeff Beeman, was speaking about how he made a garage as like a safe zone, a bomb-proof, kind of fireproof area. And I was thinking the same thing, like where is the best place to put propane tanks, right? Like I have them, I got them off my deck, but I just have I don't, so now that I have this like fire safe thing, that's actually a great place to store. So I might want to just keep it for myself, but I still could, we could talk about whether we want to like use it as another.
We use no money from our budget, so that was fine. There is money in the new budget. If you wanted to do some kind of a demo, whether it's a hands-on installing under-resistant fence, or if it's more of a defensible space model that we talked about, but there is budget.
I think it would be interesting to do maybe like a poll of folks, maybe, I don't know, an informal poll, even on the forum or something, to say, how many people are really interested in doing these projects? Like, would there be enough people to show up to, you know, cut this fiber cement board if they really were interested in understanding how that works or to install it? Kind of just want to get a little more input.
I have about the way you just described it is how many people are interested in doing this. There's another segment that would benefit from coming to see it, not even thinking about doing anything like this, but when they see it, they go, "Oh, that's not that difficult," or "I could do that,"
or I can't do that, and I should hire a professional, right? Like Richard and I had a lot of those discussions about learning on the flip side.
I think you have a bigger audience than you expect.
Okay, good to know.
And also, we have it in our budget that we could send out a postcard next year, and you know that would give us an opportunity to do a questionnaire and send some kind of an informational postcard. And I think I even budgeted for 2, so just know. Okay, so anyways, your exhibit was amazing. The house was amazing. Nona, the conservation committee, every time I'd look over, I saw you have a big smile on your face, and I would see people enter the room and they would make a beeline for you because it was such a beautiful table and everyone was so enthusiastic. And I love working with the conservation committee.
We love working with you too. So and again, I that's a monumental undertaking, that event. Clearly it went perfectly.
Great. And then Wanda, you may not know it, but Wanda spent a significant amount of time thinking about hurricanes, surveying the area, getting volunteers. Her husband volunteered. She was getting friends to volunteer, and it's a thankless task. And I appreciate it. She spent a lot of time thinking about the outside exhibits. So thank you so much.
A lot of discussions.
A lot of discussions.
And it worked well. Like you had said, the flow was really nice, right? People had chances to move through and not any area got too crowded at once. So brilliant.
And I do want to thank the Emergency Preparedness Committee, Conservation Committee, and the Sustainability Committee, because it was a really wonderful thing to see so many of the town committees supporting our efforts. So right now, we're not going to schedule anything for next year. I think that as we move probably next month to discussing what our vision is, we should think of all sorts of things like these online lectures and toolkits and small seminars and how we want to do that over the next few years. Because that was a lot of work. Maybe we need a bigger committee.
Well, also delegate, Jennifer, delegate.
So any discussions about the wildfire here? Any more discussions?
Well, I just want to mirror Dee's comments that, you know, it was true this year, it was true last year. We couldn't have this fair if you weren't running it. You just do an amazing amount of work.
I think we all this year, it was a big team effort. A big team effort. And we missed Jeremy because Jeremy was, you know, he was a big help both years. And we really missed him. And the staff, oh my gosh, Barry Chin, I cannot tell you how much time she spent on this event. I mean, it was a big lift for the staff. Is there any comments
Oh, we should thank Chip Swan because he's on the Zoom.
Yeah, I think he left.
Oh, did he leave?
Oh, he left.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's no comments, I think we'll move on. Oh my gosh, we're gonna make it. Let's just stay another couple minutes and get this done. We're gonna move on to town council priorities. And this was given to us by Fred Taylor last month. It is the town council priorities.
What were we going to discuss about this list?
I mean, it's pretty obvious that we are under assessment and mitigation of hazard and risk, as well as community preparedness and awareness. And then committee involvement is to add to agendas for committee, liaison discussion, solicit projects. Any discussion on these priorities? Okay, so as we so I have a short-term agenda for listed here too. I mean, next month, I'd like to open up that whole communication discussion we wanted to have. I think it's important, as with this town council priority, to remember that, you know, community preparedness and awareness is one of their high priorities. So we should, that fits with that agenda item. If you have any, I know MJ, you had sent me a couple of months ago a great article on communicating about wildfire preparedness, and I can't find it if you still have it, but if anyone has any articles that they want to put in the agenda packet, I'd be happy to do it. I already have made a list of town websites and started looking at them, and that might not be bad homework to just think about. And then how can we work with conservation? How can we all share a message? What message is it we want to send? So that, I think, is a great discussion. And, you know, how can we do something that's a little less work than the wildfire preparedness fair, but actually start helping people with tools? I will say on this agenda topic, I attended a meeting at the ranch, and I was making a pitch for something like this R4W sprint program, where I said I'd like to come in and see if I can get a contractor to offer a discount and get the ranch members to group together and maybe get 10 homes to have the ember resistant vents installed at one time. And they said they tried it and they couldn't get homeowners interested. So that's an interesting conversation. If that's the solution, if there's other solutions, how do we do this? And I think it's a good time to step back and say, what do we want to do for the next year?
Okay. Are we still on the topic of town council priorities?
We are on E because it's town council priorities and short-term WPC agenda.
So, you know, one thing that's going to come up in the summer is the fire hazard maps for the LRA. So they said right now we got 1,000, excuse me, 1,000 public comments on the SRA maps. So I don't know how long it'll take them to go through those, but once they finish all that process, then they'll start the LRA.
Well, insurance is also a huge short term. It's got to be something that we communicate. And I will say, from something I didn't mention in wildfire preparedness reviews, I talked to probably 100 people. And it was very interesting. And I mentioned this in the report. And insurance was a huge thing everyone's interested in. I asked every single one of them about the new draft ordinances. No one had heard about them. One person had. And only 2 people I asked, so did you get the letter from the fire district? And they said, oh yeah. And I said, so did you read about the new defensible space requirements, the citation process, whatever? And they said, no, I got the letter and I don't know what I did with it. Or they hadn't read it. They're total disconnect. Total disconnect. But when you started talking to them about insurance, and they really missed the fact you didn't have someone at the insurance exhibit because she had COVID, they were totally focused on insurance. And that might be our way to communicate, to get people's attention. They were also very interested in the go bag. They were really, really interested in the Ember Storm video and the go bag. Those were people, and also there was distinctly 2 different types of people. There were people that I grabbed that were walking their dog that didn't intend to go to the fair, and they were interested in the go bag. But the people that came and knew they were coming, they said, oh no, I've done my defensible space. The contractors for landscape, they said, can't believe how few people came to our exhibit. They were interested in home hardening. They were interested in events. So it is, the message is getting out there. But there's different layers and different levels of people that we have to communicate to. Okay, so any other comments on this? Okay. Boom. Okay, no public comments. Okay, and then Conservation Committee update.
I think I've already said everything that I need to.
Home hardening and vegetation management.
Yeah.
Okay. We the only thing for finance and insurance is we did not get the CWD, California Wildfire Defense Grants. We did not get that. Okay, there's no staff. So our next meeting is June 21st at 4 p.m. Is everyone going to be here? Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to during the meeting. Do I have a motion? Second. Everybody vote for it. Yep. We're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
I'm impressed.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you.
2 seconds. I'll send it. I'll edit it on the plan.
Wow, I can't believe we got done.
No, at the beginning of the meeting was kind of going slow. It's like, oh, it's gonna be a long night.
No, I think we got it all.
No, we just covered a lot of stuff.